Welcome to Mum Days, a beautiful collective of mamas and experts sharing wisdom, inspiration, and life hacks to support us on this journey through the hazy days of motherhood. Welcome to the Mum Days podcast. I'm your host, Holly Lowe, and as always, I am so grateful that you are joining us today to listen into our continuing conversation on trauma in general, but all the ways that it affects our bodies and our decisions and our parenting. There's just so much involved in that. So we're diving in deep into a heavy topic for the next few weeks, but I think it's a super important conversation. Today, I am really lucky to have Bethany Geddes with us, and I was blessed to be on her podcast and to have a great convo with her the other day. And I think she's somebody I could probably talk to for a long time. So I have no worries at all that we're going to have a good conversation today. I'll give you a quick little snippet of the story that we're going to hear about. Bethany's a full-time mom of 2 young boys. She's also a widow who has experienced the loss of a partner and a previous diet and health nurse. She is now running a thriving online business, and it's called Nutritious and Delicious. And I'm loving all the information I'm getting to learn and things that are just great refreshers for me, but a lot that is new as well. So welcome so much. And I'm grateful that you're here for this, a really important topic, because I know you're going to bring some personal information, story to this, but also a little bit of professional advice too. So welcome, Bethany.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Holly.
So we're going to jump right into it. I want to hear your story. I want to hear, a little bit about your personal life, what's going on. We're going to get up close and personal today, because I know it's not, everybody's story is unique. And yet I know that we have so many mamas who can relate to this. Personally, in my life, my mom has gone through some pretty extreme trauma, losing her partner, her husband's twice. She's lost 2 different husbands suddenly and in kind of tragic ways. So my dad being one of them. So I've watched it from that perspective, the story of, how it affects your body and your health. And I've lived a little bit of that, but I want to know from you, what is it that you've been through and how's that guided you?
Sure. Thank you. So I'll kind of start at the beginning, I guess, because it kind of started a little bit more in profession. So I started as a nurse, like you said, in the diet and health industry. And I did that for about 5 years before I actually ended up having my kids. I left when I was pretty heavy pregnant, so I was ready to have my first baby. And that journey kind of took me into some postpartum depression, unfortunately, with my first baby. So that was kind of my first touch point, I'd say, with sort of mental health issues myself personally. It was kind of hard, I guess, in the beginning to sort of recognize that I was, in a traumatic state, because I was just in this survival mode, as a lot of moms technically are when they first have a baby. So my circumstances at that point was my first baby was very colicky. I had no idea. And I didn't really realize until about 6 months in, I felt, kind of isolated, like social anxiety, and I wasn't even facing like what we have today in the world. That was back in 2013. So kind of professionally, I went into nutrition. So I'd already, done the whole dieting aspect and being a nurse in the medical route. And I felt that I wasn't really helping people very much. Like, people were coming back in heavier, they needed more help. And the huge component that was missing was the mindset, the mental state, the emotions, the tapes, all tied to it. And I opened Nutritious and Delicious basically when my boys were really little. So kind of doing that on the side. And then I was being a stay-at-home mom. So I ended up having my boys about 22 months apart. So I have 2 sons now. And I found that I actually got a lot better once I had like community around me, being a stay-at-home mom and going through all the depression, anxiety, things like that, kind of on a personal level. And then when I had my second son, it was a very different story. Like, I was really anxious going into being a mom of 2, because they were 22 months apart. So basically 2 in diapers.
Yeah.
And it was almost like having, I would say, like what felt like twins, when people call them Irish twins or whatever, when they're really close together. It was hectic and I was again in survival mode, but I think I had a lot more confidence and knowing. And throughout the whole process, what I noticed that held on to was I really looked after myself, physically, mentally, even nutritionally. I still got back in shape like right away. Like I worked out, I think, with both my boys up until I was like 7 months pregnant, until my body was kind of like telling me no. And I was like, okay, I get it. I can't do anymore. So I think that really helped me not going too far down the rabbit hole of the whole anxiety, depression, and also having a community out there that were helping me as well get through it. So after I had my two boys, so that was, really tough, obviously, raising two little kids. It's very hands on, full on. And realizing sort of as I was doing my business, as I was being a mom and raising my two boys, unfortunately, my husband at the time was struggling with a lot of mental health issues himself. And we ended up actually losing him like October 2018. So it's been 3 years now. So my boys at the time were 3 and 5 when they lost their
Mm,
dad. So it was quite a challenge. It was hard, I could say that for sure. Um, like being that I was already a stay-at-home mom and I was running a lot of the home stuff anyways, it was more trying to sort of keep everything together, and it was like I was sort of trying to tread water with two kids
yeah.
on my back as well. So there was a lot of tough moments in there. Overnight, basically, I came became the breadwinner. So that was another huge, tough thing
Yeah.
too. I wasn't just a stay-at-home mom anymore. It was, put the foot down on the gas like really hard because everybody depended on me and needed that, right? So it to say like the rug was really pulled out from underneath me, it was. And I think because I had already experienced the whole postpartum depression, anxiety, and I knew kind of the rabbit hole that I could fall into, I knew I had to really make sure that I wasn't just in survival mode anymore and that I was actually going to thrive. And I'm like, I have so much more left of my life. And my boys have just started their life. Like I knew I had a long journey ahead of me. So, kind of in a nutshell,
Yeah.
that is sort of, up to now. My boys are 6 and 8 years old. And I have been in a really happy relationship for the last 2 years as well. So, to say going from, stay at home mom to losing my partner to now where like I have a business, my boys are happy and healthy physically, emotionally, myself included. And, that much included that I've actually attracted a relationship into my life as well. So
Mm,
it's been a long journey. Let's say that.
definitely. It's been a long journey and that it's actually to me very miraculous that you've made all of that. Like you said, you attracted it. And I think that's
Yeah.
really key because there's a mindset component that's huge to
Oh,
this.
yeah. It
You,
is.
if I could say anyone had a right to be in a victim state, or have that victim mentality, you earned that right. I mean, I think most of us would feel like 100% you're justified to sit in that.
Yeah.
And
I
yet,
didn't I didn't want it though.
right.
I
And
didn't
that's
want it.
tricky because especially with little ones who are looking up to you and relying on you, we can put ourselves aside like most mamas do and just
Mhm.
focus all of that energy into what they need and helping them. But I find that when we do that, then that neglect on us, it just compiles, right? And it
Yeah.
gets pushed down and it gets repressed, and that's where we see a lot of this repressed trauma, situations coming up in health and in your body and in all the the ability to make clear decisions and all of those things are
Mhm.
impacted. So I it's beautiful that you were able to recognize that. Kind of the gift in having been through postpartum depression, if you could call it that.
Yeah, I didn't even realize that sort of had a connection, but when I do look back, it makes a lot of sense. If you're what you're saying, like if you're not doing anything actively to look after yourself emotionally, physically, whatever it is, to keep yourself going and thriving, the problem is you are going to crash and burn. And that's exactly what I teach, through my business to other moms is if you're not taking care of yourself first, then everybody else in your family is going to suffer. And I've
Yeah,
seen that firsthand, you
yeah.
know.
It's so true. It's the whole illustration. We say this all the time is putting that oxygen mask on first.
Yes.
There's a reason when you're on a plane they give those instructions. If
Yes.
you're not okay, if mama's not okay, no one's gonna be okay. So yeah,
Right.
I love that you do what you do for that purpose because one of the reasons we're pulling in all these different aspects to trauma is because it's not just a one faceted thing. We have to look at the emotions, we have to look at the physical health, we have to look at the gut health, we have to, and that's that whole healing journey. It's not going to happen overnight.
Mhm.
You did a great job of getting your family pulled together and healed up, and all the things that you've wandered through in some ways, without meaning to,
Mhm.
because you were pushed into
Yeah.
it. In other ways, you've intentionally done. So that's a beautiful thing to hear.
Mhm.
Now, I want to know from you, from on a professional side, and we could have lots of conversations in the future about kids and nutrition and all this stuff. And we're definitely going to talk more because that's going to be
Yeah.
something we want to do. But let's talk more about for the mamas or for women or for any of us who it could be birth trauma. It could be postpartum depression. There could be a whole gamut of what it is
Mhm.
that PTSD. After my first baby, I had PTSD and didn't even recognize it, like you said, because you're in the thick of it. It
Yeah.
took me years to recognize how abnormal my
Yeah.
my feelings and behavior, weren't healthy. Like that, it wasn't a normal way to feel that way. Um, but when we're in the thick of that, I'm trying to think of the best way to explain that. When we're in that thick feeling, when we're in that daze of maybe a shock of trauma, maybe it is just something that's brought up a repression of something. How is that directly, or is it directly affecting our diet? And I use the word diet not by, a diet we're having or on a diet.
Yeah.
What we're putting in our mouth and the decisions we're making about our eating and how that's going to, come full circle for us.
It's in a lot of it's in a lot of ways different. So everybody's kind of going to go through this differently. Some people lose their appetite, some people gain an appetite when they're stressed. So, for example, when I first, went through all of this, I was in shock for probably a few months, so I probably dropped weight really fast. Again, feeling like I was sick every time I ate, and that's high stress, right? People can go the opposite way as well and comfort eat, and I find that's more of a chronic thing more than like an instant happening. So when you haven't really dealt with your trauma, your stress, childhood, birth trauma, PTSD, things like that, it typically goes more into like a chronic state where it's like you're trying to sort of numb yourself.
Mhm.
So, people do that with alcohol, they do that with substances, but people also do it with food because it's not a banned substance or anything like that. And you could easily access it.
It's easy.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so I tend to find that most people will gravitate towards like high sugar, high carb foods. Reason being is because of the nerve pathways it works on. It's a instant hit of a rush, basically.
Mhm.
So it makes people feel really good in the moment because it's either I feel really full and sedated feeling, or I feel really high in a sense of sugar or the carbohydrate load, which is probably high in sugar as well. Like you think most people don't crave vegetables or anything like that. So obviously, it's definitely related to carbohydrate load and sugar load. Now, the other aspect when I think of nutrition and stress is that our gut health. So if our body isn't actually absorbing nutrients properly, and we're stressed out. It's like I think I saw this a really long time ago. It was like a picture of a zebra, and basically it showed the zebra like in fight and flight of it's like a cartoon zebra
Yeah.
of a lion chasing it. Its body's telling it like you're in a state of real high stress. Do not eat. So therefore, your digestive system gets slowed down
Right.
basically, and that's where you're actually not going to be digesting your food properly. You're probably going to more have something like a leaky gut because it's not actually going to absorb the nutrients properly versus being relaxed and comfortable and in a good state to eat. That's why I always suggest people like it's also your environment when you go to eat as well. Like if you're having an argument with somebody, the worst thing to do is sit there and eat because your stomach's going to feel like it's in knots
Yeah.
because you're in a fight and flight state. You're arguing or if you're crying or your baby's stressing you out. Like a lot of moms, I probably did this myself, but eat when, the baby's sitting on them or crying. like your body's in a tense state and you're trying to
Yeah.
eat this food and it's not actually absorbing properly because your body's telling you need to either fight, flee basically, or freeze. And it doesn't actually take the nutrition in properly. So that's why when you eat, there's a way of actually like slowing down, enjoying every mouthful, like being in a relaxed, calm state when you're eating, because it makes such a difference in how much you're actually absorbing in nutrient wise level.
Yeah. It's interesting
So,
because it's something that I've had to teach myself in the last little while. And I've got 3
mhm,
busy kids and busy household, busy business, all of those things. And I found myself, I'm like what you said in the first place. I'm the person who, when I'm stressed or I'm in a trauma state, I won't eat. I just have
yeah,
zero appetite.
yeah,
When we went through our miscarriage in August, it took me a
mm,
good probably month. Like it wasn't probably till September that I even had an appetite. I would make myself eat because I knew I needed sustenance.
yeah,
But I
yeah,
was eating to live at, that point. And it's funny because I do that with even with my successful births with each of my babies. I felt like that for weeks after they were born. I know hormones play a role in that as well, but
yeah,
just that feeling of like I have no interest. But I've had to teach myself even the last few weeks to remind myself to don't just put something in my mouth because we're in a rush and I have to head out the door and I'm going to be hungry.
hmm.
I had to really almost schedule in my food. Does that sound, crazy? I don't know, but
No,
I find when you're in a busy state, if you have a newborn or if you have a busy household, you have meal times maybe, but if it's that kind of thing where you're running off to a practice or you have kids in this or whatnot, I don't want to be constantly running through a drive-through to grab something
yeah,
that works, right? That'll just work for the moment. And we fell into that for many years. And my gut health, like you're talking about, I went through dealing with leaky gut. My mental health suffered because of that. All of those things happened. And so I've spent the last 2 years healing that all up again. So
definitely.
it's definitely something I've had to recognize is um, has a root for trauma with me and things that have happened in my life, and I will pull back from food. So it's that
Hmm.
opposite. And I'm glad you brought that up because we don't often talk about that. We'll talk
Yeah.
about overeating or we'll talk about comfort eating, which, like you said, can be a long term chronic effect of repressed anything.
Hmm.
Could just be something, a pattern that you've fallen into. But there is the flip side of not eating or not eating right or not taking the time to plan your meals and do things like that. What are some, I don't know, maybe just some practical tips for that type of scenario where you're not eating in a relaxed state or you're finding it hard to get time to have a decent meal?
So to me, that sounds like it's a time issue. Now, the first thing I would say to people that aren't eating and actually putting that in place is if you're not planning to succeed, you're planning to fail, basically. So again, this is a big mom issue, I find. Is if we don't put food out for ourselves, we're always making sure our kids are fed. We're not going to say, like, oh, you're going to, starve today or fast or, like they're always going to be fed. So if you've got kids, you're feeding somebody 3 times a day at least. Most people are. So where's your meals fitting into all of this? Like you're not actually putting out anything for yourself. And I do hear that often is a lot of them say, well, I don't have time. I'm running in here and there. Well, if you don't have time, you're actually needing more than ever to be putting these foods together for yourself as well. So, when you prep the kids' breakfast, when you make their school lunches, like do another one. Act as if you are the other kid. You
Oh,
have
that's a good
to,
tip. I like that. I'm going to do that.
well, you have to,
I hate
right?
making lunches, and yet you do. You have to do it, and you lay it out, and you plan it, right?
Yeah, like you don't have a choice. You got to feed them. So, why not
All
feed
the
yourself
time.
too, right? And again, dinner, a lot of parents say to me, well, I don't like the same things my kids do. Like I just, I pop something in the oven for them, whether it's a lasagna or chicken nuggets or something like that. I always suggest to parents, like I don't always make different meals, but I'll take different items from those meals and put them on my plate. So, I always, for myself, I have to avoid dairy. So if I'm making them something, I just put maybe cheese or whatever it is, the sauce that they're using on their plate and put like, something, I'll take something out first for myself
Right.
and then plate everybody else's afterwards. The other one too is to have leftovers. So if you're making
Yes.
dinners and you do enjoy leftovers, some people don't like it, but I'm very big on leftovers because then you already have a meal for yourself. Because I know as moms, we go to the cupboard and we're hungry and we're like eating basically crackers or a stick of this or, something out of a wrapper. And there's no meal. There's no like food put together as like a complete meal. So I find the best meals I've actually had, whether I'm sitting at my desk and I'm eating because I've got a busy day ahead of me, or I'm, going out somewhere and I always make sure I have at least something I can reheat, whether that's soup, dinner the night before, or I'll make myself a sandwich, like I said, like the kids, I'll make it ahead of time. So that way I'm excited and I actually have something to look forward to versus like I'm just living off of coffee and then like looking for scraps.
It's
Like,
so true. Or you're eating your kids' leftovers,
yeah,
right? We used to
that's a
laugh about
big
I
one
exist on
too.
leftovers, but it's the stuff on my kids' plate.
Yeah, that's a big one, especially when
Yeah,
they're like little, like I find because they can be pretty picky around toddler age preschool and moms are like, "Oh, okay, I'll eat out of my diaper bag." So they're eating like basically children's snacks
yeah,
that have like no calorie nutrition and there's like the foamy stars or whatever they have that's
yeah.
going on or Cheerios. Like you can't live off that. Like that's them using practice food.
That's
Like
right. That's right.
yeah.
Yeah, your gut's going, hello, I need something real. That's so
Yes,
true. Yeah, and I like
exactly.
that's 100% what, and I've taken some of that from your groups and the things that you're teaching. I love that because they're good reminders. One of the
Mhm.
tricks I've started using is my to go mugs, my thermal mugs.
These are the best. The
Right?
other issue is I
I put
find
soup in them.
that's awesome. The reason
Yeah,
I
so I'll
use
be
these
driving and my kids are like, did you get a coffee? Like, I don't drink coffee really, but can I have some of your tea? And I'm like, you can have some of my soup.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
know?
The reason why I like these for moms, just like a thermal mug or something, is just because I always found that I would make myself a tea or coffee. I would put it somewhere, I forget about it, I wouldn't drink it, and it'd be cold. And it's like a pet peeve of mine. So to always have a hot drink in your hand, that's why like that is like the biggest helpful tip like I've done for myself, I think.
100%. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's the less running to the microwave to reheat something a million times. Yeah.
exactly.
Well, and the main thing too is hydration, right? On top of that
Yeah.
is just finding I don't love drinking water. It's been a struggle my whole life,
Yeah.
but I love herbal teas. So if I can always have a warm herbal tea somewhere, I will down as much water through the day as I'm supposed to in
Yeah.
that state.
Um, for a suggestion on that one then, if you don't like water, because I know I struggle with getting water in myself as well, is herbal teas is good if it's like cold weather, but
Yeah.
we put a lot of different fruits in our water jug at home,
Yeah.
lemons, limes. We put a lot of like the frozen berries in there.
Yeah.
Because obviously it drains through. So it looks like we're drinking like right now. That's water, but it's quite
That's
pink right
awesome.
now because we've
Yeah.
had berries in it. So because it's got a different taste,
Yes.
it's like it almost feels like you've got a bit of a fruit juice in there. So that's also another way of people getting them to drink a little bit more water as
Yeah,
well.
I use the lemon oil all the time. So one drop of
Awesome.
lemon oil in my water. It's one way I can get it in, and I feel like I've had a drink, not necessarily have to
Yeah.
start drinking water. So yeah, I know it's one
Great.
of those lifelong things for me. I'm like water. My kids now remind me. Have you had water this morning, Mom?
You almost need like a notification or something, or like have a little sticker chart depending on how you like your
Yeah,
reward system is. Cause some people like the sticker charts for like working out, or I've drank
yeah,
my water today. It's like a way of like, I got to complete something
totally.
basically.
Yeah, check it off the list. I know. I
Yes.
know. An alarm. My son was like, "I'm gonna put alarms on your phone where it's just gonna go off every little bit
That's
and tell you
awesome.
it's a
Yeah. And it's like,
warm alarm."
people do that too, where it's like, when I used to work in the diet industry, because the girls would bring their waters to the front, we would do basically like on the hour, like, okay, we chug, like we're gonna have a quick chug sesh or whatever. So
That's
it's like
awesome.
that, yeah, that almost that reminder notification, like just chug back as much as you can, and then an hour later do the same thing.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. I want to talk a little bit more about this in just a second. Have you ever felt overwhelmed or confused by the world of natural wellness and essential oils? We're here to help. At Oil Babies, we want to make it simple, safe, and easy for you to have all that knowledge at your fingertips and the tools to take care of your family. Check out our Back to Basics program on our website or check out the link for more info. All right, we're back. I want to talk about supplements a little bit. And I don't normally go into this because I'm a bit of a supplement. I'm very picky when it comes to supplementing. And I don't mean, necessarily specific. I mean, you can share that specific brands or whatnot, but
Hmm.
I'm so I'm always so appalled at how dirty the vitamin industry is, to be completely honest,
Yeah.
and also how many people still do not either understand supplementation or use that option. And when we're looking at, maybe we're going through therapy for traumas, we've started to realize, I know when you become a mom, those babies and those kids are your little triggers for healing that needs to happen. And
Yeah.
you can look at it in another way. You can just say that they're triggers,
Mhm.
but the truth is, they're our best teachers. They're sent to us to heal up and to become whole people. So I remember the first time walking into a therapy session after my kids were born and going, oh, wow, like there was so much to unpack. And I had
Mhm.
like in my head, I had a pretty great life. Like there was nothing that really felt big until I had my babies and all
Yeah.
these things started to start. So for me, as I was going through that, I realized that the stress, some of that of working through some of these things, it can bring up stress that you're not accustomed to dealing with. It can maybe open some old wounds. Good therapy doesn't walk you through all that necessarily. It will
Mhm.
help heal that up, but there's still that aspect to it. Maybe it's something that we've just been through. Maybe it is just postpartum, just I say that with a big J, but maybe it is postpartum healing and recovery. Supplementation really became a big part of my life after I realized I had PTSD and
Mhm.
after I started realizing that the stress was affecting my gut. What are some like, basic everyone should be on these kind of deal? Is there something like that? I have a few in my head that I always feel like we're always a little bit lacking, regardless of
Mhm.
eating a perfect diet. What are some that you would mention to clients or recommend?
A lot of the clients that I deal with have very low energy. So I have top three right now I can think of. So I have B vitamins,
Yes,
and I'll talk about those. Vitamin D and omega threes, and
perfect.
these are like basic supplements.
Yeah,
So a lot of the times, what I notice is a lot of women come to me taking vitamins that are like from the store shelf, and they're like the women's one a day or something. And when you look at them, they are filled with fillers. They have like no nutritional value to them. They're like really small. Um, and you're basically wasting your money. Let's just say that.
yeah,
So I don't ever specifically recommend a brand to anybody, but what I do recommend is if you are going to take a multivitamin or any kind of supplements, some you can get away with, others a little bit better, but I do usually recommend more bioavailable. What I mean by that is that these are the ones that you're going to find in the organic aisle. They are typically in like glass containers, so they're dark, so they're not hit with like any light
yeah.
to alter or change them, and they're usually made from food. So they're very much coming from a very potent source of natural foods. Now, when you go into a little bit more specifics of other ones, so example, a lot of moms I find are lacking iron. So myself included, I am on a very high iron supplement that is bioavailable, and it's made from dried food, because otherwise my body's not going to absorb it properly if I'm taking something that is a pharmaceutical
Right.
typically. Other things that some people could be taking due to everything going on in the world right now, people are lacking vitamin C, they need more zinc. Vitamin D is another one for that as well. If you are prone to getting viruses or, getting sick this kind like time of year. But basically, I'll go into the three that I would say kind of on a regular basis, like if you're a general healthy person. So B vitamins, these are good because they are water soluble. Your body's going to pee them out. So if you've used them throughout the day, you're like B vitamins, you want to get a B complex.
Okay.
Basically, B complex is basically all your B vitamins in one. Now, if you start buying them separately, like you're buying B6 or B12 separately, the problem is they counterbalance each other. So if you take too much of one, like
Mm,
if B6 you're taking too much, your B12 is going to start dropping, and
interesting.
you don't want that, right? So that's why I always
And you hear a
recommend.
lot about B12. That's the one that's always like
Yeah,
recommended over and over again. Don't worry about the rest. Focus on B12.
the problem, like I said, the problem with
Yeah.
that, the problem with that is some people, if they are actually lacking a B12, they should be going to go get like an injection for B12,
Right.
like a shot. Um, but typically most people can get enough through a B complex. So
That's
that's
good to
all
know.
of them put together. They're in the right ratios
Perfect.
and you need them every day. I
Yeah.
would recommend B vitamins in the morning because they are going to give you energy throughout the day. Um, the other note is people usually freak out on this one, but they pee a little bit yellow
Yeah.
when they first start taking them. That's normal. It's not you peeing them out or anything like that. It's just the riboflavin,
Yes.
which is just a coloring basically of one of the B vitamins. So not to worry on that one. And then B vitamins are going to help you with your hair. It's going to help you with your nails. It's going to help you with your stress energy. Every cell in your body needs energy. So if you're lacking energy, you're probably quite low in B vitamins. Now, that's a pretty basic
Yeah.
vitamin to take. I usually take, one a day. That's all you basically need. And then the other one I would highly suggest for a lot of people is vitamin D, especially with everything going on right now. If you are in the northern hemisphere, you're in Canada, you're above basically anything above the equator line,
Yeah.
you probably need vitamin D because you're not sitting in the sun all day long.
Yeah.
Vitamin D, typically for adults, they do suggest, I think, on a regular basis, 2000 IU. I actually personally take 4000
Yeah.
in the winter.
Yeah.
In the summer, I drop it a little bit because I am in the sun and I actually am getting a tan. So you're not actually absorbing a lot of vitamin D unless you are actually kind of getting your skin exposed without sunscreen.
Yeah.
So vitamin D is
And
quite
it's
crucial.
the
Sorry?
so something that I had learned too is the idea of the D3. Well, it's the D3K2. So there's that combination for people who might be a little low on their K option. I don't know where I have to look it up again. I don't know if you've heard this, but the idea that the K2 helps with the D3
Yeah, I
absorption.
would I would have to personally look into that for each
Yeah.
individual
It was
person
just
because
interesting. I remember reading a thing on that and then seeing it on the health food store shelf.
yeah,
I'm like, oh, D3K2 is an interesting combination, but not everybody needs that.
I would look at that because K is known for blood clotting. So if
Right.
you are on any kind of medication that, you're already experiencing those issues, I
Yeah.
would be very wary of that. So
Yeah.
um that would be something that, yeah, you'd need to kind of find out first if you are lacking before you
Definitely.
start adding things in.
Yeah.
The other aspect is vitamin D is really good for kids.
Yeah.
You need to give them it in drop form. Usually, I give my boys probably about 1200 drops basically in a day. A lot of the kids' ones are quite low, I've noticed.
Yeah.
So, the babies,
I've just been using a regular D3 for all of us. And
yeah, if they can
I just
swallow it.
adjust the drops. Yeah, it's actually drops. So
Oh,
it's
it's drops. Okay.
yeah,
Yeah,
I know
sure.
there's one I use Thorn. That's just a really simple one because it's a clean one, but
Yeah.
there's lots of them available. So yeah, I did actually ask that question just recently to one of my friends who's a naturopath. I said, is it okay for them to use my kids are 7, almost 10 and 13. So
Yeah.
he's like, yeah, once they're out of infant staged vitamin type
Yeah.
things, she's like, go right to your regular one. You're just going to do one drop for the little guys, and then you're going to increase with their age, kind of deal.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was
Yeah.
handy. Then I didn't have to buy two different ones.
Yeah, that's great. I usually just do that for my boys with a little bit of honey in the morning,
Yeah,
and that way they take it and they're good. And even now they're reminding me. They're like, "Hey, give me my vitamin D."
yeah,
I'm like,
mine
"Okay,
do too. They
sorry."
they put it in their water because ours is flavorless.
Oh,
So
that's good.
they put a drop of lemon oil and then they put their drops of D in, and they have little
Perfect.
shot glasses that
That's awesome.
we line up in the morning and do our shots together.
Nice.
Love it.
And then the other one I would recommend is omega-3. So I
Yeah,
usually with omega-3 would really like to see people actually eat it versus
right.
like taking it by pill, just because um, a lot of us are taking a lot more omega-6 in than omega-3.
Yeah,
So that's like our animal fats and things like that. But omega-3 is actually plant-based. So you want it to come from things like avocado oil, flaxseed oil. You'll get it in hemp seeds as well. And you're gonna get it things through like coconut oil as well.
yeah.
So these are the healthy fats, and a lot of people shy away from fat in general because they're like, oh, it's not good for you. But the problem is it's all in society, it's all being conglomerated together as like fat isn't good for you, but
Mhm.
it's not like
Our
saying this
brain
is
our brain needs fat. Our body needs fat.
our brain is made of fat
Right.
basically. That's what it needs more than anything.
Yeah.
And especially children developing, brains, everything. And a big one for that too is mental health.
Yes.
So typically when I deal with somebody that does have a lot of anxiety or depression, they're usually massively lacking either vitamin D or like healthy fats.
Yeah.
and they've got the wrong kind of fat in there. They've got like the animal fat, or they've got the trans fat. Now, trans fats come from manufactured, like man-made fats, right? Which are not good for it at all. But omega-3, if you can't get it through your food, like so salmon, like I said, avocado oil, sardines, um, you
Does
know,
MCT oil have?
yeah, you can get it
Okay.
through. A lot of people have been using that as well in their coffee
Curious
and
about that.
things.
Yeah, because sometimes I
Yeah.
either do like a half a scoop of like just solid coconut oil, or I do a squirt of MCT oil.
Yeah, a lot of people using that, and that's great as well. And then if you're not getting it enough through, I'd say your food, and you don't have sort of, I guess, the budget or something for salmon or any kind of like fresh fish, I guess. I would recommend like an omega-3 oil to take as a supplement. Um, they're a little bit harder to take in a sense because a lot of people, like when they do take fish oil and stuff, like they complain about the smell.
Yeah,
And also, like, if you burp and stuff like that,
yeah,
you get kind of like a fishy taste.
yeah. We actually have a.
So,
I'm gonna show you this real quick. We
yeah,
have a
sure
really,
thing.
we have a really good one. This has become our favorite, and the adults we use this in pregnancy too. Where's my camera? So this one's
Oh, yeah,
called.
okay, I've seen this one
Have you
before,
seen
yeah,
that one? The
yeah,
doTERRA's IQ Mega. Oh my
yeah,
gosh, it actually doesn't taste like. My kids all love it. Like
yeah,
I was shocked, and I was giving them another one, another Canadian-based one, when they were younger, and I'd put it in a squirter because they hated it, and I would just be like, "Open up!"
yeah,
Squirt it back. And now I have to keep this. That's why it's in my office. I have to keep it. I'm supposed to keep it in the fridge, but it's cool down here because my
yeah.
little guy will just take it like out of the fridge and keep
Oh,
eating
wow,
it.
yeah, okay.
So I caught him the one time overdosing on his.
Yeah, you gotta be careful with those too, because I
Yeah,
notice a lot, even with kids with like all the Flintstone gummies or anything like that, because they come out looking like candy. You
yeah,
gotta be
they
careful. Like
taste really good. Yeah,
supplements can also interact with medications, and
yes,
children also sometimes think they're candies. So just be
yes.
aware and put them somewhere safe,
Yeah.
obviously.
My mom has a good story about that one when I was little. She took me to the doctor because she couldn't figure out why I had orange rings under my eyes. And the doctor, after looking at me and asking all these questions, said, "How much vitamin C is she taking?" And my mom's
Oh my
like, "One a day." She had these big vitamin C
Oh
chewables
no.
that tasted, I loved them. They tasted like Orange Crush. And she had no idea that I was climbing up into her corner cupboard and taking like 5 or 6 of them a day. I would just eat.
Wow.
And it was
Yikes.
it wasn't even the vitamin C, it was the coloring added to it was
Oh.
tainting my skin.
That's
Now that we laugh
crazy.
about it, she's like, "I can't believe they had that much fake color in your vitamins." And I'm like,
Yeah.
even the doctor knew that's what it was, like,
You'll be surprised what's in this stuff, like,
oh my
just trying to
god.
find a plain vitamin D for children or a vitamin C, I went looking for that, and everything from, having aspartame in
Yes.
there and
Oh
food
my gosh,
coloring, and I'm
why?
like,
Yeah,
I'm not looking for all this garbage to put in there as well,
yeah,
like, so you really have to
you
read the
do.
ingredient label too on that
Yes,
as well.
you do. And if you don't understand it, ask. If
Yeah,
you're going, especially, I recommend go to a health food store as a starting point if you
yeah.
can, and just ask questions. Even if you're not going to buy it there, just ask them questions. They're very
Oh,
knowledgeable.
yeah. They
Yeah,
have a lot of insight
yeah,
and stuff on that,
yeah.
so
That's awesome. I love it. Yeah, it's one of the ones that the only other one that I would say I've had to add in more regularly now is magnesium because we are dairy free.
yes.
And so that's a nightly routine for us with our probiotics. So we all take I have the kids magnesium and zinc. That's a really good one. And it's a liquid, so it's nice and easy. So
Yeah,
we
that
these
helps
are
that
our
helps
morning
with the
shots and our nighttime shots.
That's awesome. Yeah, magnesium is really good for calming anxiety,
Yes.
too, for people. Definitely take that one at bedtime though, because it makes you sleepy.
Yes. Yeah, we learned that one.
Yeah.
Good bedtime vitamin. But that's also another good one for, I know, for mamas postpartum too, or with postpartum depression. That combo that you were talking about, all of those are actually
Yeah,
very helpful as we're navigating the hormone changes and sleep and all of those things. So
definitely.
yeah, good recommendations. I love it. Awesome. Anything else you want to tell us? I'm going to wrap it up in a minute. And I want to know, is there anything more that you'd want to add as far as maybe just eating habits or choices that we're making that are easy to make, or little changes we can make as we're working through some of these things in our body?
Yeah, definitely just putting yourself first. I think a lot of moms struggle with that mom guilt of, either I don't have time, I'm too busy. Like if I can do it, and I've had, 2 kids, being a stay-at-home parent and going full board into a business, and also making sure that I'm like looking after my nutrition and my exercise and everything for my own mental health. Like you guys can do it too.
Yeah.
So you're just telling yourself a story and you got to start changing those tapes around.
That's amazing. It is. It's the priority, right? It's just
Yeah,
an idea. Maybe you have to schedule it in. Maybe you have to make an appointment with yourself a
you
couple
do.
times a day.
You are a priority. You have
Yeah.
to.
Yeah. I love it. Well, thank you so much. This was a great chat. We will talk more. I want to talk more about kids and eating and all that good stuff as we kind of transition into some
Awesome.
other themes coming up. But I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Holly, for having me. I appreciate it.
Would you like to learn more? Find me on Instagram and YouTube at Mom Days Podcast.